Welcome to episode 8 of the Science of Advertising show, the show where we disclose the advertising secrets that brands use to influence and persuade human behaviour. On today's show, we have Dr. Cooney Horvath, the preeminent expert in the field of educational neuroscience, with a focus on memory formation, attention and learning. And your host, Jonathan Rolley. And on today's show, welcome, Dr. J. Here we are.
Welcome to this new show, this beautiful. So you're up north where you can get a haircut. I'm still in Victoria where you can't. Can anyone tell the difference? I think we look pretty similar.
I think they can, but I am up north and I can get a haircut, but I choose to cut my own hair. For those of you who don't know, I cut it every week because it saves me time and money. It's about a 4-minute job. You didn't even know that.
What do you do with a clipper?
Clipper and a set of thinning scissors. Look. That's what you should be doing in COVID.
When you got hair like mine, you don't even need thinning scissors. It does all the thinning itself. So I just need some clippers. That's going to be good.
That sort of thinning. But let's dig into today's show. What have we got? Well, on today's lineup, we have the great man, Adam Gilchrist, and the team from homeloans.com.au. We also look at Jeep and looking at two creatives. We've got an old one and a new one in Compare the Pair, then the classic creative. Marge. The rains are here from none other than McCains Super Juicy. So some amazing work from those guys at McCain going back quite some time now. But let's rip into it. Let's look at the latest work from homeloans.com.au.
When it comes to money, we can go to extremes. There is an easier way with homeloans.com.au. Find out how much you could save and apply online at homeloans.com.au.
There we have it, the latest from homeloans.com.au, and we've got Adam Gilchrist poking his head up and delivering for the team. I've got lots of thoughts on this one. Dr. J, do you want to kick off or do you want me to start the ball rolling?
I'm curious to hear what you think because I'm on the fence on several things. So why don't you kick it off and then I'll either agree or disagree or just, quietly sit in the background.
Look, I'll seed a couple of ideas. I think they pulled in attention. The $20 note on the petrol Bowser, for me, kind of really resonated for me when I was probably in uni, and it literally was, I had $20 and I needed fuel and that's all I had. So that brought like a right smile to my face. So I connected with it. So it got my attention. It pulled me in. Then it flipped to Gilchrist. So it could have been like a different ad, but it flipped to Gilchrist. The thing about Gilchrist, he's a celebrity and he's very well liked. Who is he well liked by? So if you're into cricket or you're a sporting man, so typically males, 35 plus, Gilly, you trust him and you do have quite an affinity to. So he's got leverage there. But this ad, I think they got lost in the idea of the $20.
Yeah.
They got lost on the idea of we've got Gilly, and that's where it stopped.
There was nothing beyond those two. We have a funny joke and we have a celebrity. Just throw them in there. It's
going to be a home run, totally. Whereas it digs into like a promise proof. So this is one of the weapons that you've got to promise. What is the brand's promise? They did mention it. How much can you save? See how much you can save at homeloans.com.au. Where it falls short in a lot of brands that never follow up is the proof. Back it up. Why can I save money with you? Or give me a reason to believe. And I got this from a US brand. They use an RTB, a reason to believe. In all their ads, they've got a promise and they've got an RTB, a reason to believe that's true. And that's where the magic happens when you got promise and you can prove it.
So I'm thinking then, is that kind of like one of those Allstate or Geico's where they say such and such just saved this amount of money? If you go with the other guys, you're going to get this percentage. But if you come with us, you're going to get this percentage. So they actually give you the proof that we're not just talking. Here's something real for you.
100%. They anchor it to a proof point why it's real. Come with us, save money because we're 100% online. We don't have all the overheads like the other guys. That's why we can save you money. So you've got to prove why you can, especially with the saving money. Yeah. Like everyone is saying, I can save you money. That's the same message. That becomes noise. Prove it. Why?
What's the next? Yeah. What sets you apart from everyone else? So that's where, I think you're spot on. I kind of, I felt it was 2 commercials. You could literally have put anything in front of the back end. You could have put a box for 20 seconds in the ad, still would have worked because they didn't make sense together. But with that said, because it was such a recognizable thing, you're right. It was a good intro in that it brought my attention in. It's like, oh yeah, I did that. Where they fell short on that aspect is, okay, at least bring your brand into that aspect. Literally, you could cut and chop that segment and put it wherever you want to. Why can't the gas pump have your name, or your name is on a sticker, or the guy's wearing something to bring you into that bit to make us know this is unique to you? But beyond that, they also screwed up just a little bit when he pumps the gas and it goes to 2004. No one sucks that bad. You don't go from 1999 to 2004. You go to 2001 or 02 if you're on a really slow day. So when he went to 04, I'm like, dude, what that kind of, it's like just a small thing that irks the heck out of me, because I'm like, no one would have actually made that mistake. Then he comes in, and you're right. I think because I liked the setup of the intro, just bring a little more of your brand into it. But now that you're talking about the promise proof, yeah, when he comes on, who's your market share for home loans? Like if you've already got a home loan, which I'm guessing that's what they're kind of targeting. I don't want to be this guy, but usually the husband's not the one refinancing. The husband's not the one going out saying, hey, can we get a better home loan? And this could just be purely my experience. I don't mean to be sexist at all, but most wives handle that finance stuff in that home.
It's just you.
Oh, it could, if it is.
No, I'm just joking.
If it's Gilly, I mean, that would be something we could easily look up, because now you've got a celebrity anchor who I'm going to respond to, but I ain't never going to do anything with this. So thanks for showing me a guy I like out. You need to have a celebrity anchor that's going to respond to the people who are actually going to take action on that idea.
And the interesting, going back to you mentioned there's 2 points I'd like to just dig into a little bit. The first one was brand.
Yeah.
So when you look at like long-term branded assets, and this may be a bit of theme for today, I'm not sure, but this is where we remind and refresh memory structures. So it's consistent. As we move forward with homeloans.com.au, what is going to be memorable, as in what a consumer is going to recall from that particular ad that anchors to your brand? Is it Gilly? Every time you see Gilly, now I want to anchor him to my brand. Is there a jingle? Is there music? Is there a fuel bowser? Like, what is it that you want to anchor to your brand that you can link it back to homeloans.com to? So they're your long-term branded assets. And the other one was you got attention, but you really didn't do much with it.
Yeah.
You know, it goes back to some points that we had. So it did pull in some attention, but it didn't really harvest it the way it could have. Because for me, it's not a very memorable brand. Like after you see it, you don't really know, was that a homeloans.com.au ad? Was that an ad for Westpac? Was it an ad for, like, it could have been anyone that was slapped on that, because it wasn't specific to their particular platform. And just on that, and this is the other thing that I was thinking about, anyone that's looking at putting $20 of fuel into their tank, you know, unless it was me, do you really want them as a customer?
Probably not looking at the home loan issue. See, you could have had it as someone doing it for fun and who just keeps screwing up. Because that's what I do. Is like, I'll just pick a random number and try and stop it. If I'm wrong, you go up to the next dollar till you get it right. So you can turn it into a more relevant joke. But I think you're right. There's no long-term, there's nothing that can carry over from this ad anywhere else except for maybe Gilchrist. And once you have attention, that's a point you can't make enough. Once you have attention, cool. That doesn't make a memory. Memory is a whole different ballgame. The attention opens the door to memory, but now you've got very specific things you've got to do to build the memory. They didn't do anything. I think the only thing, thinking back to it now, I can remember is purple. Is that their color?
I can't even recall.
So that's it. There you go. I can't remember their name. I can remember Gilly standing here, and I think he was in front of a purple background. But guess what? If that's the memory that I'm forming, it's because you got my attention and you never drove the next step, the next level to say, okay, what are we going to do with this now?
Yeah, incredibly powerful. But yeah, there's probably several things there. But the one big takeaway from me was just learnings I've had from a lot of international brands was, if you've got a promise, if it's generic with something like, we'll save you money, anyone can say that. You've got to prove it. Give the viewer something to believe in, that they know that's true, that they're going to invest some more time and energy to explore your product and service, not just an empty promise, because anyone can go live with an empty promise. But look, interesting one from homeloans.com.au. I wish them all the best. But as we digress, we've got some new work from Jeep and we've also got some old work from Jeep. So let's cut to it now, Jake. Let's look at the latest work from Jeep.
Compare the pair. There's our theme song, by the way. Did you lay that down? Oh!
Dad?
Hey, what's happened to the Robinsons?
They bought a Jeep.
You bought a Jeep.
Yeah, I bought a Jeep.
We're going to need a bigger boat.
What's a nice car like that doing in a place like this?
Came in for a sandwich.
No parts.
She reckons the dealer's got her covered.
Not even a quick tune-up.
Says she has a cap price service plan.
What about a spare?
Reckons she's got roadside assist.
Would you show her the sign?
Yes.
Well, what'd she say?
She said, I'm in.
All right. Don't hold back. I bought a Jeep campaign. I'm in.
What is the Don't Hold Back? Is that the name of the song?
It's the name of the song, but it's also the name of the campaign that they've run for. They had run for a very long time.
Well, go back to exactly what you were talking about in the last one. The not continuous branded assets. What's the term you use? Long-term branded assets. There is not a way in heck anyone who's lived in Australia in the last year hears that song and doesn't immediately think Jeep. They own that song now. Even when it's on the radio, they play it on Triple M or one of those every once in a while. As soon as it's on, I'm like, why are you playing the Jeep song? That's not a fun song.
The Pop Bellies, they owned it. They absolutely crushed it with it.
So I'm going to say, if nothing else, already you've got, but it could have been, but now I'm thinking, okay, what if it's a timing issue? What if it's the fact that because I've seen that commercial a million times and I've only seen the I'm in a few times, and give it a couple years and there's going to be, but really when you look at the I'm in, there's nothing there besides the words I'm in. I didn't hear a song that was there a song when she was driving away at the end?
No.
So we've lost some of that acoustic coding. I can see I think the pivot, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you know this a little bit better than me, is the I bought a Jeep is talking about the power of a Jeep and all the crazy things you can do with it. The new ad campaign, the I'm in, is about the durability of a Jeep, the fact that it can last longer and you get free roadside assistance and all these wonderful bonus extras, which is cool. I can see the pivot. I just don't know what the point of the pivot is unless they're losing market share.
Look, you've probably nailed it, and I'll just give you some context so this might help. So I bought a Jeep, that entire campaign, Aussie dollar was high, Jeeps were cheap. They absolutely crushed it for a long period of time, to the point where they got hurt big time with cost of parts. If something broke on a Jeep, it would cost a fortune. They would literally like gouge your eyeballs out.
Okay.
Customer service was horrible.
Eee.
So the user experience of this product was not great post. So, and there was even, and again, this is not me, this is coming from market. So the reason market came up, they came up with their own campaigns. I bought a Jeep, and they were posting them on YouTube, but the Jeep was a lemon and they were very sad about the Jeep they bought. I bought a Jeep. So there was so it was like a parody. So the I bought a Jeep, incredibly powerful, but from a product delivery, there was some question marks about it. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people out there that still love Jeeps to these days, but there was that they sold so much in this market over it was a real hero story. It really was. So now you can see the pivot. They've built this up, and that was a great campaign, from I bought a Jeep you know, in the canyons all the way through. It was very, very powerful. So they're trying to pivot now to go to, we've got great customer service. You don't need parts. We've got you covered type of strategy.
So and now we go back to what we were talking about last week about the hero shot. So in the original I Have a Jeep campaign, or I bought a Jeep, excuse me, the Jeep is the hero. The Jeep is the thing that's pulling the big boat at the end and you're like, damn, that's a nice car. Now the Jeep isn't the hero. So they're trying to make something that's off camera the hero. The fact that this Jeep comes with good customer service, comes with free roadside assistance, comes with 3 years of all this stuff. Things that I'm not seeing that you're telling me are in the ether, but now I'm stuck looking at. So that's what I felt with the new one was there's no reason that I need to buy your car. It was never a hero. It didn't make me feel good. It didn't do anything unique. The only thing it did was make me think, man, this woman is playing with danger. If you're not even going to fill up your car and there's 500 to go, you've made your driver seem a little stupid. And now I'm going to attach that to your car. And I'm thinking, are you really in? Should you be in, or should you be smart and get some gas before you go 500 kilometers into the desert? That's just me.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. The original Jeep campaign, like I love it for so many different reasons. You know, I bought a Jeep. What an amazing tag. It was a theme for nearly a decade. I bought a Jeep. You know, there's proof. I'm an individual. I bought it. You've got literally social validation, social proof right there. Yeah. In that one, you've got the little kid, you know, where he goes, we're going to need a bigger boat. It speaks to the demo.
Yeah.
It aligns with the car. It appeals to the ego as well. You know, you need a bigger boat, you got a Jeep. It immediately positions Jeep as more of a premium product, but the price point is mid-range.
And it hits the masculine demographic too. I mean, we're the ones who love Jaws. So we hear that quote, we see that car, we think about our own lives, we go, yep, I see all the connections you've just made. I like it. And again, so let's take the background off of this story. The idea that maybe Jeep's customer service used to suck. From a pure ad standpoint then, everything about the I bought a Jeep is good. There's nothing bad about that. You could recycle that asset again and again and again, and they did. And with that song, it just kept working. And when you got something that works, it's hard to step away. With the new one, they stepped into something else because they had to, cool. But there's no pattern. There's no repetition. I'm not 100% sure what I'm supposed to be doing with it. Why am I into your Jeep versus anything? Your name's not even in your slogan. I'm somewhat confused.
Look, and I think that right there was the point I was nearly going to get to. You've got, I bought a Jeep. So it looks like they're trying to transition this or start to invest in another long-term branded asset that they can build upon.
Yeah.
I'm in. What does it mean? Doesn't mean anything. It's kind of a weird, I'm in. Doesn't make sense. Like, is it, you know, Jeep, I'm in, or it needs to make a bit more. I don't know. For me, it just confused me. I don't love it. I'm not sure if they'll drop it in the near future. I don't know.
I'll bet they do. But if you think, you can kind of see where they're going. Maybe, and maybe I'm totally wrong, is that you now have ads where, say, a bunch of burly guys are going to go kayaking up in the mountains. And you're like, I'm in. They're like, but you don't have the car for it. We drive tank. We're driving a train up a mountain, something that no one would normally drive. And you go, no, I got a Jeep. I'm in. So maybe it's, I'm going to join you on your escapades because I have a Jeep now. Is that? I'm making this shit up just because it's so confusing.
Look, you've got an angle there. Whenever I look at a tag or something like that, I go to, would a child under 7 or 8, you know, walk around, say it or sing it or recite it? You know, Is it that catchy? Is that easy to learn and recall? Is it something they want to say? Because that for me is a bit of a barometer of something. Can you see a kid going, I'm in, you know, I bought a Jeep. We're going to need a bigger boat. Like, is there something in that kids can grab a hold of?
Yeah.
Because as soon as your kids start saying some advertising messaging, like it's literally infiltrating from inside your house out.
It's borderline illegal at that stage, but that's okay. They did their job.
It's okay. There's some things that I really like about it though. I like the door shutting at the end and the engine revving. Like there's a couple of codes where you can see there's going to be a lot of consistency. You know, so a little bit of acoustic encoding and a little bit of a memory hijack there as well. So if you can associate Jeep with every time your door shuts, you know, that's quite powerful.
So maybe it goes back to what simplicity and clarity are number one. Take all the weapons of influence off the table. Take all the memory, all the thinking off the table. Step one is simplicity of message. Perhaps and so the fact that I can think of 3 different angles they could take. One, I'm in, ergo, we're going to do adventurous thing. Two, their ads are all going to be about very sad mechanics. Why? Because you don't need mechanics anymore. So maybe that's the angle they're going in. Three could be deep adventures on your own with a durable card. Like, there are so many different angles it could have taken and will possibly take that I'm just not sure. And then what that means is you missed simplicity and clarity. You didn't tell me where you're going, what you're doing. Ergo, you've left way too much to me as the viewer. So I'm just going to have some fun with it.
Look, totally agree. I'm very curious to see how this campaign evolves. And there was 4 ads in this ad set, but that was one of them. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting because they seem to have pivoted to trying to address the, maybe the concern they have around about durability, reliability, which is why there's no parts, cap price, ride, so to assist, because there's maybe some disgruntled people out there. But I'd probably suggest if you've got disgruntled buyers in the auto market, they're not going to buy your brand anyway. But having said that, if you look at the auto market, I think it's less than 50% of people buy the same brand of car they bought last time. So there's quite a bit of switching that goes on between car brands as well. So
is that true?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Huh.
So if you're looking at cars, do you go, I bought a Jeep and you just want to own it? And, Jeep's an amazing vehicle. You've got a lot of cool product out there that you can show in amazing situations. For me, if we're looking compare the pair, the first one, I bought a Jeep campaign, crushes the I'm in. It's got all the right elements. It's got all the right mix, including, the 46K drive away. It's simple. Back to your point, it's not 46,790. It's just simple, 46K drive away. Whereas the second, the I'm in, it's too complex for me. It's not simple. It's not something that you can easily recall or anchor the brand to. And the proposition isn't simple. They're just trying to throw too much stuff in it. So if we're looking compare the pair, for me, it's a no-brainer. It's the
no-brainer. And I think this is a good point to make. If you're going to do a long-term thing, like maybe you have a big ad campaign you want to get out there and you're worried about the simplicity thing, you can draw something out. Think about the Katuit story that we saw last time. You can, but you've got to make sure that every element, every step along the way could potentially stand on its own. Does make sense, ticks all the right boxes on its own. So if Jeep is trying to build into something, cool, I'll give you a year to do that, but you can't the audience isn't going to go with you on that entire year. Every time you come out with a new commercial, that commercial has to hit at that point to then build into the next one. So it's not like a Netflix TV show where you can draw me out for 3 hours and I'm going to keep watching because it's Netflix. Every commercial has to hit. So even if you've got bigger ideas, you have to find what are your smaller chunks that will build up to that larger idea that you can unveil in a year from now. But that was built on the back of these very specific, very simple, usable bits.
So I want to ask, while I've got the neuroscientist here, I want to ask him this question, which I know we've spoken about. The question is, when we're looking at long-term branded assets, a brand that is consistent in market with the same branded assets, whether that's a jingle, a tagline like don't hold back, or I bought a Jeep, very consistent over a number of years. Can you explain to the audience the difference between creating a new campaign and a new idea, which so many brands do every 12, 18 months, 2 years when they engage a new creative agency, or the remind refresh of being consistent?
So you can assume building memories is a very difficult thing to do. It takes time and it takes multiple exposures, multiple repetitions. When you make new memories, those memories begin as what we call episodic memories. So we call them episodic because they're episodes in your life, which means they're forever tied to that time and place where you made that memory. Episodic memories they're very hard to access outside of that context. They're very difficult to what we call transfer between realms. They're kind of just these little nuggets in your life that unless I'm thinking about a birthday or at a birthday party, I'm not going to pull up memories from my other birthday party. The more episodic memories you make, eventually you can create what's called a semantic memory in your brain. This is a standalone contextless fact now that can be accessed wherever, whenever, however. Now it's transferable across situations. When you've got a long-term branded asset that's been going for a long time, what you've done is you've built semantic memories in people's brains, which means no matter where you hit them, they'll be able to bring that up, recall, remember exactly what that is and go, yep, that's that song, that's McDonald's, that's Jeep, that's whatever the heck it's going to be. When I'm still in episodic phase, if I hear your jingle or your saying or your quote out of context, I'm not sitting directly in front of my TV, I'm never going to draw the link back to that commercial. And it's going to just be another standalone idea kind of floating around in my mind. So one of the key things is you've got to build multiple episodic memories to build a semantic fact in your brain, a semantic memory. So these longer term ads with these long-term branded assets, that's where you build the semantic fact. Once you've got the semantic fact, now you can play as much as you want to, and people will be along with you, because as soon as I hear that, doesn't matter where I could be, in my car, I could be upstairs, I could be outside, it's still going to hit me. Oh, that's the Jeep song. When you're starting a new ad campaign, you've got to build into that semantic memory. And so that's why attention, memory, repetition, what are you doing, simplicity and clarity to help me build episodic memory so I can pull a semantic out. So if your idea is to start a new ad campaign every 12, 18 months, best of luck creating that semantic fact that people are actually going to live with. You need more time.
Totally. So the point there is, if you're looking at developing a new campaign or a new strategy, you've got two options. Be very clear on what your long-term branded assets are so you can continue to remind and refresh and build those memory structures in consumers' minds. You're going to pivot all the time in terms of your creative, whether it's every year, 2 years, 3 years. Be very conscious you either want to carry on your long-term branded assets, and it literally should be like a list. Here are our long-term branded assets. Here's what we need to integrate to our communication so we're continually refreshing that in consumers' minds. Otherwise, you need to build new memory structures from scratch, which takes a huge amount of effort, being money, resources, advertising, to create those. And then you need to remind and refresh. So the brands that continually flip, they're the ones that usually have to invest so much more to get these assets in consumers' minds.
And there's some that can do it. Like I'm thinking Budweiser. Budweiser has a tendency every year to just go totally off kilter and do something new. But it's fine because it's Budweiser. The brand itself, the logo has never changed. The wording has never changed. The bottle hasn't changed so far as I can remember. So when you come out with a Dilly Dilly commercial 2 years ago that everyone's like, the hell are you talking about? It's fine because I still know it's Budweiser. You're having a good time. Most companies, unless you're a Budweiser or McDonald's, you're not in that ball game. So you need to know, yep, this Gecko, which way does it go? The Gecko is going to come over. I don't care if our company pivots from insurance to something totally different. That Gecko is coming with us. So everyone still recognizes our brand until we get to a spot where we're a Budweiser. And now we can just throw all caution to the wind.
Totally. So unless you're one of those 2 dozen brands in each country that has those budgets that you can throw at them, be very conscious of what you're doing, especially if you're looking to pivot creative. Just dropping your long-term branded assets, it's a big call. McCains Super Juicy. A classic creative.
It's time for a blast from the past.
It's now our 10th week without rain. Doesn't look like the heat's going to let up just yet.
Marge, the rains are here.
McCains Super Juicy corn cobbets, specially grown to be super juicy. So juicy they're simply bursting with flavour. McCain, you've done it again.
You've probably never seen this one on TV, Dr. J.
This was before my time. Was this when you were a kid?
So this is as I was growing up, this was. So, Marge, the rains are here. That became part of our vernacular. And if it's interesting, the more you look at Australian, top ads or, the most famous ads or the most recalled, they've usually got some sort of tagline that then feeds into the Australian vernacular.
I was thinking that when we were talking, all of our blasts of the past, with the exception of maybe Cadbury, when you look at classic Australian ads, they're all super Aka. Like you couldn't play that ad in Denmark and they'd go, oh, that makes sense to me. They highlight what this country is. So that there's something to that.
They tap into the Australian psyche and even the vernacular. But again, if you go back through 80s, 90s, and even 2000s, it was very much tapping into that culture, and that was mass. Whereas now, year on year, we become far more multicultural. So you lose a little bit of that as we continue to expand our population. But look, I simply love this ad. You know, it's got intrigue from day dot. Guy sitting there out on his porch, you know, he hears a drop, but it looks like it's completely arid. There's nothing going on. And he's like, what is going on? There's a bit of an intrigue. And it doesn't matter how many times you watch it, you still have that little bit of an intrigue. And you just go, it's very well acted.
Yeah.
It's simple footage. But it's so relatable to Australians. Like for me, I grew up pretty much on my grandparents' farm. Every school holidays, I was shipped out to central Victoria, which was like, you know, a desert in many different ways. So I connect with that, and you can understand the dry landscape and the humor that goes behind it. It's got product preference. So you're seeing the corn being eaten, and it's juicy, and you can see the flavor going everywhere by these kids, and they're loving it.
Yeah.
You know, it's brought to life. That in essence, that simple idea has been brought to life in a very powerful way.
What's the and it's they hit that zeitgeist perfectly. Dry, arid Australia. That's something we all recognize. So when the rain's hitting the roof, that tin roof, we all recognize that. And what could say juicy better than comparing liquid juice in a corn cob to the most dry, arid desert thing out there? When you see the actual water hit the dust on the thing, this is my first time seeing this commercial. I don't care. I don't know how old it is. Brilliantly well done. It's like, I get exactly your sell point. I know what you're doing, and I kind of want to try it now. I'm guessing, like in my head, these are like giant corn kernels, and I feel it, and I'm like, I want to go check this stuff out now.
So here, going back to let's look at brand or let's look at brand salience. So what is that? It's really owning the one or two words in the consumer's mind.
Yeah.
McCain was sitting there going, corn, who owns corn? Who knows? But do we want to own corn, or do we want to own juicy corn?
Cha-ching. Now, what sounds better to you? Corn, you got cornmeal, you got all these other corn things. So they said, okay, what's our differentiating point? It's the juiciness.
Let's own juicy corn.
Yeah.
So this is where they started. What are the two words we want to own? So when I think juicy corn, oh, I want a real juicy corn. What do I want to own? Juicy corn McCain. And then how do we bring that idea to life?
Yeah.
Juicy corn, how can we best articulate that? Cool, we're going to have a really dry, arid, sunburnt, corrugated roof and some kids eating corn, because we want kids to be eating corn and the family to be eating corn together. Like, all the ingredients for a magical ad are in this, which is why I love it so much. They've owned it from a brand perspective in terms of the brand salience for juicy corn. I want to own that, just like pizza delivery. Who owns that? Domino's do. They don't own pizza. So you got to look at back to the basics. Don't get lost in the idea like homeloans.com.au. Let's do this clever bit and let's have Gilly and it's going to be awesome. It's like, no, what do you really want to own?
Simple, clean, and I'm thinking an interesting, and this is from a neuroscience perspective, one of the most underutilized, because it's incredibly difficult, technique in films is sensory. We are ridiculously good at mirroring. And if for some reason you can show me somebody eating a watermelon in a very juicy way with a close-up, if you could see my taste buds, the parts of my brain that process taste and say smell, they will be activating as though I'm eating that watermelon. So I can mirror senses. We just tend not to try to do that with film. We give you audio, we give you video, and we just kind of leave scent, taste, touch off to the side.
But just on that, that is product preference. So if we're looking weapons of influence, product preference, we want to see the Jeep going up mountains and doing these crazy things, because that is what we associate. We want to see the product in action. If it's corn, we want to see someone eating a juicy, succulent. Beer, same thing. Drinking, makeup, we want to see people using it. We want to see it in action.
And beer does it really well too. So now we've got visual, we've got auditory, and sometimes that's fine. With a Jeep, there's really nothing more you need. I don't want to smell the exhaust. I don't need to taste the tires. But when you're selling a food product or something where your tag is juicy, how do I activate juiciness? And believe it or not, you can. And they did it very well by doing a contrast between two textures. In this case, dry, arid air and wet, dripping corn. That contrast is enough for me to activate my taste or my motor senses. And now I can actually feel those things with you. There's no way you're hooking up to my brain through your TV, but you've just tapped in and now I'm mirroring it. So one of the best examples of that, beer does it great when they have the person in the hot air with then the wet bottle, and you're like, I feel the heat and now I feel the cool. I'm with you. There was a gum in the US called 5 Gum. Did that ever make it out here?
No.
Next week, let's look at the 5 Gum ads just for this. They did the best job of tapping into the other 3 senses than anything I've ever seen. And they knew they were doing it. That was their entire ad campaign was, we've got a gum that's got good flavor. Oh, it did make it out here. So 5 Gum was around. We'll have to look up those ads next week. When their entire thing is, how do we get big, bold flavor out in an ad? You could do it visually with like a big triangle or a big orange, here you go. Or you can do it sensually by comparing, contrasting different sensations and then letting us mirror that. And so that's what I liked about this is the dry, arid desert and the corn. There was no way I didn't taste that in my mouth. And I was already going, cool. I see what you did. I loved it. It worked. Give me some damn corn.
Love it. I think it might even be a nice episode next time to let's look at ads that can tap into either senses and emotion in a deep way for deep experiences, or just really connecting with the environment they're in. Like Solo Man, even the one that we looked at and reviewed, he was dry, it was hot, he was sweaty, and you could see the perspiration coming off him, but then the condensation on the can, you could tell it was cold, and he slammed that thing. And I got thirsty every time I see that ad as well.
And we could do it. There's some other ads too that like, where I'm trying to think, I can hear it, but I can't remember what the ad is, where somebody's rubbing their finger along sandpaper, and with the audio and then the close-up of the finger, and you see all the grains and you feel it, you get irky with it. And so that's what I love about the human brain. We don't need to actually feel or smell or taste something. We can mirror that. So long as you're giving me enough input, enough signal or hint, I'll do it myself. Just
on mirroring. So in terms of us, can we tell the difference between something that we're physically experiencing or something that we're watching from a neuro perspective?
This is going to sound weird. We can, but our brain can't. So you, as John Rolley, as an emergent property. So this is why in science, we differentiate between the brain and the mind. The mind isn't in the brain. The brain is part of the psyche, but the psyche is a little bit larger and exists beyond the brain and can reflect back in on it. So long as you're thinking you're eating corn, so far as your brain knows you're eating corn. So in terms of memory, in terms of attention, in terms of sensory plasticity in the brain, that's all going to happen as though you're eating corn. The brain doesn't care one way or the other. You always, though, as a psyche, can stand outside of that and recognize, no, I'm not actually eating corn, but I'm getting those sensations. I'm getting salivation. This is why VR works without working. Why no one will ever lose themselves in VR. It doesn't matter how deep the rig goes. You can give me a suit where I feel everything and I smell everything and it's pure virtual reality. My mind, our psyche, always is one step removed from our senses. So we'll always know I'm in a simulation. Doesn't matter how real it gets, we'll always have that little niggling voice. Once you lose that niggling voice, that's when you hit mental disorders, things like schizophrenia and things where you can't differentiate between thought and reality. And the mind and the brain just kind of, they become one and the same.
So from a memory formation then, like say I'm watching, a NutriBullet, on TV versus watching a NutriBullet, I'm experiencing it for myself.
Yeah.
Like the tactile approach of you using it yourself then seems like that's going to be a more profound or deeper memory compared to me watching someone else use it on video 10 times.
Yes, but they're not going to be as massively different as you think. The difference is going to be in sensory integration. Is when I'm watching somebody use it, I'm combining visual, audio, and mental physicality. So there's enough of a memory being formed. It's awesome. But as soon as I actually touch it, now I'm combining visual, auditory, olfactory. I'm smelling something, pure tactile. Now all my senses are actually combining. So you get this little physical boost. Plus, anytime you actually move your muscles, this is going to sound weird. Memory doesn't just happen in here. It happens all throughout here. So when I mirror somebody throwing a ball, so I'm just watching somebody throw a ball and I'm imagining I'm throwing it, I'm demonstrably getting better at throwing balls just by watching them. That's why I've never played footy in my life, but I'm not going to suck if I ever play it because I've watched so much damn footy. I know what to do. Once I actually throw a ball, now I'm like building memories all throughout here as well. And that's where I get that secondary boost. So go back to the NutriBullet. Watching it, I will learn. Touching it, I'm building deeper body memories as well. So you could expect to learn better. So if you ever have a chance to demonstrate a product where someone can do it, always do it. Let somebody do things. That's the best way to get it.
But Yeah, look, but you can also effectively embed memories in an individual by them consuming quite a bit of content.
Yep.
So my biggest takeaway I got from that is if you want to be great at footy, watch a lot of footy. So to all those kids out there, make sure you're watching heaps of footy because it'll make you a better player.
Keep watching. You're the next Gary Ablett just by watching him.
Show this to your mum and your dad and go, I need to watch more footy on the weekend. But Dr. J, that's it. Thank you for your input. Thank you for joining us. We love having you on the show. And until next time, that's a wrap.